January. We have minutes from January 15th.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead,
on
Jane.
page 1, wasn't it more than 3 employees?
Yeah, I want to just say employees
Yeah,
rather
Just
than three. Take
employees.
3 off. Nabby, on page 4, on the resolution and the motion for representatives to ATNI, we actually appointed Tom McDonald as the principal representative rather than me. Did we do that? Pretty sure we did that. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one, I guess, addition or correction for where I mentioned the Joint Boundary Treaty Act. Meeting is in Vancouver next Wednesday, and Tom is unable to attend in person, but there is a Zoom option for the meeting, and I will be doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, I would welcome a motion. Motion by Tom to approve the January 15th minutes with additions and corrections. Second by Greg. All in favor? We are unanimous. We have an agenda for today. Any additions to the agenda? I have just a couple housekeeping kinds of things. So if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Tom to approve.
I have a quick addition, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Got a motion by Tom to approve the agenda with additions, second by Carol. All in favor? We are unanimous. Go ahead, Martin. Martin, are you there? Well, I'll bring up the couple things I have. I'm looking to have you all look at your schedule for Friday, the 30th. We will look at having a council retreat on the 30th. Since I'm pretty sure you're gone this Friday, aren't you, Jamie? Friday the 30th. If that's a problem, let me know by Thursday. A nonprofit to handle animal control on the rest. Get some people hired, nonprofit, to actually get started on doing something. I don't know what kind of plan we have. I know the ordinance is in the works, but hasn't been finalized. But if we could start a nonprofit, maybe make sure it has funds for 3 years for a couple people. I don't know, just an idea. James?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we had the presentation on the ordinance, I think November or December, and basically it's a fundamental decision between do we approve the ordinance and knowing that we don't have any money or resources behind it, and or do we just leave it as it is? But we do have a draft ordinance out there, and I think it's actually up to us whether we want to approve it or not. I know the lawyers were saying that there's a possibility of there being some liability if we approve it with no resources behind it, but I'm of the opinion that we need to have some kind of document out there, at least giving us guidance, and then be looking for like, I like your idea situation would be good, but yeah, I'm kind of on the side of just approving what we've got and moving ahead. And, pretty much anything we do is going to be a chance of liability to anything. So, but I really think it's pretty minimal in terms of approving a dog ordinance without any resources behind it.
My thought about the nonprofit was that if we could figure out financing for it for 3 years with at least 2 people to get started, and then they start chasing resources themselves, but then there'd be a couple people to try to enforce whatever complaints happen. And right now we don't have anybody to go out and do anything. And if we could handle even one dog this week, it'd be better than where we're at. And having a couple people dedicated to it and moving forward, and we could start maybe finding locations in each district, put in at least a minimal kennel, and start asking for volunteers to help make sure those kennels are taken care of, that sort of thing.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you for your thoughts on that. I know the town of St. Ignatius has offered up a piece of their property in the area for something like that as well. I know that mayor had mentioned something about that. So I think there's a desire out there to do something. So I think once again, it's probably falling on us to probably take that lead of some sort. But I like your idea, just figuring out who to head it up. Thank you.
Then as far as financing going, I think we could get creative. How many of you have a subscription to a cell phone or a subscription to a TV service, and how much is that a month? And if we could have a nonprofit that had subscriptions for having the right to have domestic animals, or even $10 a month across the reservation, that could at least feed the animals. So something like that. Anyway, I think it could start very easily if we could figure out the nonprofit and make sure there's a couple people dedicated to moving forward with it. And then, as James said, give them some teeth with an ordinance that lets them actually enforce something. So, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard James right. I tend to agree we need to approve the ordinance. We have many ordinances and policies and other things that we don't fully enact, and it's probably because we're lacking so much money and so many services. That's kind of a general theme that we operate under. But I think we have to have some tools out there to be able to do the right thing. I think we talked about earlier the way that departments can be engaged or programs, and I can't remember if it was when Jason Adams was in here. why wouldn't, just every program within the tribal organization and corporations look at adopting a pet or adopting a shelter and maybe taking rotating turns, dedicating a change of duty station for some employees to go work it. Just it doesn't cost us anything anymore. It's just a shift of what people do. And then you can look at, payroll deductions, they're voluntary, like the Christmas fund or whatever it might be. I know there's a lot of animal lovers that are employees with the tribes. They're already volunteer, already spent time doing stuff, whether it's at the Humane Society in Mission Valley shelter up here in Polson or was working previously down in Arley. But I think your idea is a great one. So I actually support both of them. Thank you.
And I do know that ARC had enlisted several families and folks around the reservation to actually house some of these animals, and that could be connected with the nonprofit as well, I would think. So anyway, good.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the discussion. The few different times I've interacted with folks that had dog issues here in St. Ignatius, the default was call law and order or the town police. So, someone is dealing with it. It's just probably not the best situation. So I think for me, having a dog animal ordinance, at least gives those individuals that are having to deal with the dogs or vicious dog situation something to go by. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree, James. Right now, they usually have to have some sort of damage that they follow. Then they can go after the animal and the animal's owner. But usually is because of some damaged caused damage. Other thoughts? I think sooner than later be better with this. So talk about maybe this in legal again and see where the ordinance is. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it would be helpful for me to be able to see the ordinance to see where we're at. So could have an update on that.
Martin, are you there? You had an issue for this morning?
Not really an issue, just reporting that I went to the MLK an NMLK event in Missoula yesterday, put on by Empower Montana and the Missoula Black Collective. It was standing room only, and they are probably going to be looking for a bigger venue next year. So, yeah, just a good event on an important day. So, thanks very much.
Thank you, Martin. Anything else for this morning? We're a little ahead of schedule already. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I got a call. It was yesterday or Saturday from Juan. You guys remember Juan? He was the city manager for a while, or planner for the city of Polson. And he left us and went to work in, I think, San Jose or San Francisco. He just mentioned that he's working with a group of investors on large scale housing projects and economic development. And he was wondering what we had going on and anything that we'd be looking at. It was not small change stuff; it was bigger stuff. But yeah, I'll spend time with if we have a chairs meeting on Monday. I'll spend a little more time elaborating on it. But I did mention some stuff to Juan, and he did mention he was working with I think Rick right now on some project. Rickinius. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Night of the ordeal down at McDonald's down here, I had a call from council, a representative from Browning about asking if we'd have any thing to say about it. I said, well, I said, really? I said, I guess that's up to you folks because it happened to your people. I said, and I don't think that our council want to get involved with any of this because we didn't have really too much to do with it other than it was on the reservation. I said, but them people, I said, I don't think they're tribal members that own that. I said, but you know, it's just an idea of what happened there, and I'm sorry for what happened there. I told him, I said, but you know, I said, we don't have anything to really say or do anything with that. I said, so I guess whatever you want to do and follow up with what you're going to do with McDonald's, I said, I guess it's up to you. I said, because really, I said, I don't think our tribe is going to get their nose stuck in there. I said, and have things, you know, and go on with us. I said, but since it's here on our reservation, I said, but I'm really sorry about what happened there. I really am. I said, you know it happened up further up north, up here at Hawaii, up there it's going to Kalispell and to the park. It happened there too, that they got ran out. They wouldn't serve them there either. And Big Fork down the road, they stuck up for them and said, hey, you're more than welcome here anytime you want. Stop in here and you can eat here anytime or be served here anytime. You know, and now this happened here, you know, so I'm glad the people got out that night at the ball game and had food prepared for them and everything else to eat, you know, there what I heard. So it's just the idea of things like this happening, and I don't know what the individual that did it, I heard he has some issues too. But anyway, you know, it's just the deal of something like this happening, and they want us asking us about it, and I didn't know what else to tell them, you know, and I thought, well, I don't think the council, or our council get involved with this, so you guys go ahead and do whatever you want, think you necessary, you know, so that's what I would.
Appreciate that, Bing. Really do. I actually talked to the coach, probably within an hour and a half after the incident. So I had the perspective from the Browning coach's side, but there were way too many facts out there that we didn't know, way too many, and how it all transpired. And the coach had said he talked to his AD and said, well, the AD told him they weren't aware of any incidents in the past that might have fostered this. And he actually said he talked to the AD that was in Browning before the present one, because I guess the fellow or whoever's in there right now is fairly new. And they said they didn't know of any instance either, but that was all from Browning's perspective or the coach's perspective. Definitely told him that, yeah, we sorry such a thing should happen here, but didn't offer that we do anything without knowing facts. And I think that's good. And sent word to Rob and had Rob looking into if we could find out any more facts. And it doesn't sound like we actually ever accumulated all the facts involved, and was advised by Rob and that probably not a good idea putting anything out until we actually know what we're talking about. So that's why nothing actually got put out right away. I got Jamie and then Tom.
Yeah, I heard a lot about it this weekend as well. And I think I heard, I mean, obviously there's rumors, like the chairman said. I know there's some personal things that I know. But I do think that there isn't anything wrong with doing like maybe a generic statement, just the fact that we aren't in agreement with the treatment that those kids. I don't know if I'd really necessarily want to bring up discrimination or anything because we don't know those facts. But just the fact that that we stand with those Browning students, the treatment that they received, that we would never, we don't, we aren't in agreement with that. But I agree, all the facts aren't out there and it kind of puts us in a bad spot. But I would want Brownie to know that we stand with them as far as the treatment that they received. And then after this, I do have another issue, but I'll wait till this one's done.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a lot of calls, texts from my friends in Browning about the issue, and I was trying to reassure them that yeah, I don't know of anything like that in McDonald's, either Polson or Ronan. There probably was a Blackfeet kid working at McDonald's when that occurred. So it's like it's kind of crazy but typically, when you got a big school groups, I'm not making excuses for anybody, but usually you call ahead, make sure you can have your whole school bus go to a venue to eat. And back in the day when I was involved, both as a student a lifetime ago and as with children, a lot of times that you were refused service simply because the capacity of the restaurant didn't allow it, or they didn't have enough food or enough staff to deal with it. So you always check those things out ahead of time, and they gave a call ahead. That's the way we always did it. And I don't know if Browning does it that way or not, but my friends, I said, hey, I know Lenny manages the Polson one. There isn't a bad bone in his body. And given the workforce at both institutions or facilities, I just don't see that how this is even possible other than a gross misunderstanding of something. To have a hamburger stand in Ronan where 75% of the high school population is Native American and the community is overwhelmingly Native American would be a death sentence to that business to do something like this. So I said, it can't be a rational thing. Something's out of whack here. But I agree with Jamie. We support youth activities, and we want to make sure that anybody visiting our homeland has the ability to do that unencumbered with ease and with great gratification and our best wishes for them. So we expect all of our businesses on the reservation to try to comply with that and be as welcoming as possible, because that's what we do. We treat all humans as humans. And we want to make sure that if we were going to do a statement, that's what I would try to do, is focus on that, because there are way too many details that are stuck in the mud that weren't followed through. I have family members that worked in the Browning school system, so there's nothing's perfect in any way, shape, or form all the way around, but definitely it was bad optics for sure for our community and for our reservation. Thank you.
Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This gives rise to about 2 or 3 different issues that I probably have more questions about than comments about. But the first one is, in general, I am concerned that if we don't say something, that is sending a message as well. So when things like that happen on our reservation, and we are a minority on our own reservation, and given the overall political climate, the attitudes, the increased, if you will, frictions that are being drummed up between people of color and those that are not, it concerns me that when we have these situations that happen and we don't say anything because we don't have the facts, which is the correct thing to do, it gives rise to the question, okay, how do we get the facts? Does that fall between the cracks? Do we have somebody when we are faced with an incident of potential discrimination to get the facts for us? I mean, how does that happen? So I would very much like to have that question answered. And if we don't have an answer, I think we need to assign somebody in the organization as having the responsibility to sort out those facts.
Thank you, Greg. Jamie?
Like I said, I think there's just so much out there, and I think that, in my opinion, I believe that the owner's statement that I publicly said that I felt it was a weak statement, but in hindsight, I think it's because they're trying to find the facts. And I think it's up to them to find the facts. But I feel that we as a government, because we stand behind any of the governments and, you know, any tribal government, and especially the tribal kids. So like I said, I wouldn't want to get into the weeds of, you know, whether it was discrimination or what it was, but just a generic statement that we stand behind those students, that they were not treated, and that is not how we are, that we are welcoming to everybody. So I guess that's where I would like it to just be generic, not get into the weeds of finding the facts. I think that's up to the owners of McDonald's to find out those facts.
Any other comments? I'll definitely talk to Rob about the discussion this morning. Jamie, you had one other issue?
Yeah, so Bing and I attended the S&K Gaming LLC meeting, and I don't know all the history, so that's why I'm bringing it up, but there apparently, the council had wanted to assign the trailer park across to gaming, and my understanding is that they specifically asked them, what are the water issues and what is the legal description? And that they've asked Lands, Mark, that numerous times and haven't had an answer. And so I would just like to see if we could, I think Lands is coming in this afternoon, if they could get that information to gaming, if they are to take over that, they would at least like to know the legal description and what is the water issue, more information on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Anything else for this morning? If not, we can get to our agenda, I guess. Mr. Forstag, come on up. Happy New Year and welcome. Yeah, we need the mic. Yeah, we do.
Oh, so simple. Hey, thank you so much for having me. My name's Sam Forstag. I just came here today at the recommendation of my good friend Jordan to make an introduction. I have just announced a campaign for Congress about 2 weeks ago. I spent the last decade or so doing policy work in between fire seasons until this past month. I worked at the smoke jumper base down in Missoula, and I am still the vice president of our union's local. I've had the privilege of doing policy work with folks like Jordan, who I know a lot of you work with. I worked for the ACLU of Montana in between fire seasons. I've had the chance to work with groups like Western Native Voice as well. And a lot of my knowledge and education on the sort of topics that I hope to work with y'all on when we win this election has been from my good friend Jordan, from my friend Shane. And I am really just here to introduce myself and tell you that I look forward to trying to earn all of your support as potential constituents and to trying to be the best partner possible when it comes to having, you know, this unique situation of both potential constituents, but also a sovereign nation within the confines of the Western District of Montana's first. I intend to run a campaign here that talks about the housing crisis that we have across much of Western Montana and the way the federal government ought to step up and help solve that, the broken healthcare system, that there's so many significant changes we could make to make all of that work for working people here and across the district, and the lack of affordable and accessible childcare options that are impacting a lot of the folks that I know and people like me who would like to raise a family here in this state. But also I have a whole lot to learn, and we're only 2 weeks into this. So I thank you for the time, and I thank you for this place in your agenda, and look forward to hopefully speaking with you all individually at some point and listening over the course of the next 6 months. Yeah, yeah, and if you have any questions for me, by all means, but yeah, truly, I'm here to listen and tell you whatever you'd like to know about myself.
Well, thank you for coming in today. Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming in. I think we've met in Helena before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always appreciate candidates coming in. I know we're in heavy opposition to the Sheep Creek mine. Kind of what's your position on that?
Yeah, I may be just a few days out of date, but it briefly looked hopeful that our congressional delegation was going to stand with the folks who actually live in that community and opposing the mine as it's currently proposed. And then from what I've seen last, they flipped on that, and are no longer standing with those folks. As far as I'm concerned, if resource development is going to happen, then the first step that needs to happen is to earn the support of the people who actually live in that community and to show that you're going to put up the adequate resources it's going to take to make sure that we're not all left holding the bill on the back end of something like that. I have not seen information that tells me that that's been done yet. And when I talk to folks down in the Bitterroot, it does not seem like they've accomplished that. So I think we deserve a representative in Congress that's going to stand with the community until the support has been earned for a mine like Sheep Creek.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, since you work for smoke jumpers,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, do you do much in policy with them?
I don't. I've kept my fire work and my policy work fairly separate.
Okay.
Apart from a couple things with regards to DNRC that I've just stepped in as a matter of personal interest.
Okay, there's a lot of things going on with the National Fire Program, and I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that, because it's a huge change, I think, with all of those entities coming under one agency is huge, and I'm hoping it can all come together pretty well. But I guess my other question is globally, craziness that's going on. If you were in Congress, would you stand up? I mean, I don't know what a Democratic congressman could do at this point, because it's Republicans that are holding everybody hostage, I think, right now. And if they would just stand up, but nobody will. And it's just crazy. And I just can't understand why they don't do something with the chief, the chief executive officer in the White House. But maybe that's just more of a question or a comment a comment than a question. So thank you.
Well, no, I mean, absolutely. A fundamental reason I decided to leave the best job I've ever had, which was smoke jumping, and jump into this is because I've been vice president of our union's local, which covers the Lolo National Forest, the Bitterroot, Custer Gallatin, as well as the jump base and some regional offices. And we've lost about a quarter of our workers in the Forest Service in this state in the past year, and it's worse in the Park Service, and it's nearly as bad in the BLM. I mean, the VA has taken a bigger hit than anybody, and in the course of all that, I and our local reached out to Congressman Zinke numerous times and couldn't even get a darn meeting. It's been incredibly frustrating, and beyond frustrating, it's been what feels like an abdication of responsibility. And when you get the numbers of who's actually being fired, say on Valentine's Day, when we had 300 people just in the Forest Service alone fired in one day with no warning and no cause, 85% of them were making less than $20 an hour. And they're doing this in the name of efficiency. You don't find efficiencies in the federal government firing people who are making $16 an hour swinging a tool in the woods. Those are actually the people who help make sure that things are accessible and make sure that what little public services we still have are still being provided. I find that is fundamental to why I'm running here, because I certainly have seen firsthand inefficiencies in the federal government. The inefficiencies are not the people who are on the ground doing the work. When it comes to the fire service, what I find distressing is if we're down 25%, say in the Forest Service, just as an example, and they're talking about pulling all of us wildland firefighters out of the agencies as well. That's another, say, third. And now we have another round of early retirements in all of our land management agencies. We're looking at having 20 to 30% of the people managing all the same acreage. And that, to me, what I see is the same thing we've seen when it comes to public education or public health or so many services that we rely on, where they gut the agency and they gut the institution, and then they point a finger and say, look, it doesn't work. And then they privatize it. And next thing you know, you have folks like our own U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy making $7,000 every time a VLAT drops a load of retardant. And now suddenly we are all paying a whole lot more for much worse services, and that money doesn't stay in our communities. So that's a long long-winded answer to your question, but I find it very distressing, the way it's being carried out. And when I'm elected to Congress, oversight is a part of that, and making sure that this is not all just part of a play to privatize public goods that we depend on is part of what that oversight ought to look like.
Yeah, and I'm really concerned with our fire program here on the reservation. They employ a lot of people, and so I hope that, when you're out there thinking about the national and, regional levels, that you also think about the tribal people that are on the ground fighting fire too, that we have a great fire program, I think, here. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable that we've been able to build it up to the level it is. So I just hope you protect that as much as possible, because it's employment for our people, but it's other things also, protecting our resources. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had the chance to work with folks at Mission Valley, say, on quite a few fires, and I'd love to talk to you more one-on-one about that as well, about like what that ought to look like.
Tom? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sam, thank you for putting your name in the hat. I saw you speak the last rally with Bernie, feeling the burn. So appreciate your enthusiasm and stepping up. And being a pro-union person myself, it's pretty important to do that. Just your familiarity with with trust responsibilities. What is that? I mean, how would you express our tribe's relationship with the federal government and Congress?
What I've seen firsthand when I end up over at the state legislature, so the ACLU, is it seems like there's a pretty constant fight to push back on attempts to infringe on basic treaty rights. And whether that is, when it comes down to hunting and fishing, or, what the proper, how we return lands into trust status, that seems like a constant frustration and point of friction at the state legislative level. Obviously, I'm here running for United States Congress, so I would love to hear from you in terms of what you would see as a better role that a congressperson could play in terms of defending those and making sure that trust land is treated appropriately.
Mr. Chair.
James, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair.
James is online.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got some sick family members I'm watching over today. I have been sent, you go on the congressman's website and you can enter in your comments and things about different things. And so I've done that before, even before I was on council, and I've had very little response from the congressman on any issue. Recently, with the president wanting to invade, take over, whatever, steal basically Greenland, I made a comment about attacking our allies. I have not received any response about that issue. My great grandfather was a World War I veteran for Canada, the Royal Canadian Army, and we have members of our Kootenai band, the Tunaha, that are up in British Columbia. And yet the president insists on attacking our allies, people that the greatest generation went to war to protect. It's just completely baffling to me how the party of Lincoln, Ronald Reagan, etc., has just turned a complete blind eye to the current occupant of the White House, that all of the things that you talked about, while they can come up with money to tear down the east wing of the White House and what, 400 million, $800 million on some grandiose building that isn't going to put anyone to work except a few construction workers for a short time. I appreciate your comments. I think, and with if we can get you elected or a Democrat elected in this Western District, that's one more vote towards holding accountable the administration that is completely off track. And I think it's absolutely hypocritical what the majority party is doing. I think it needs to be held account. And I think I'm curious as you hit the campaign trail, what you're going to start seeing with some of the Republicans that are starting to realize this man don't care about them. And anyway, so I've said a lot, not necessarily a question, but really appreciate you putting your name in and helping the rest of us potentially in Congress. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I got broadly speaking, my briefest thoughts on what you're saying, James, are there seems to have just been a complete abdication of basic duty and courage from our own congressman when it comes to fulfilling your role as a member of Congress when it comes to something like an act of war, or when it comes to upholding the treaty rights that are in question here, Greenland, of course, being a NATO ally, or when it comes to actually standing up for your own constituents, because we have a 5-vote majority in Congress, and we could have the most powerful person in the United States Congress representing us in Western Montana right now, if he were willing to stand up for federal employees, public servants, treaty rights, respecting our NATO allies, any of these things. And it feels like there's a complete lack of representation and voice there. And yeah, those frustrations are something I share and something that I intend to fix when we boot him out of office.
Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sam, I'm over here on your hard right. Trust me, that's not a political statement. So I want to thank you for coming in and seeing us. It's not often that a lot of people do. I think oftentimes we're misunderstood, and oftentimes that's because we're underrepresented in terms of what we are here in this part of the state. So I see it as a relationship that needs to develop, that needs to build, and one, if it isn't cared for, it starts to deteriorate. And my fear is that with the politics that we're talking about on the national as well as the local level, that the tribal intertribal relationship could easily start to come apart. So I'm not looking for an answer this morning, but the next time we meet, I will ask you again what you see that we can do as a tribal nation to help build that relationship with the majority of non-tribal members here in this part of the world. It's a challenge that is on both sides. It's a relationship that constitutes two, and both need to work on it. I'm curious as to what you would see that we need to do as tribal people.
Understood. I'll do some thinking on that and look forward to talking to you again about it.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Just one, full disclosure, I voted for Bernie. What would you do, or what would be your number one initiative for climate change issues? What would you, if you were elected?
Yeah, we have an incredible opportunity to be part of a transition to clean energy in this state. We have incredible wind resources, solar resources, and I think that the way we do that is going to have to include federal resources and funding to help push that along, and to make sure that as we're making the transition, we aren't leaving people behind in terms of the actual jobs that are being lost. And I actually think that on a fundamental level, that has been a failure over the last 30, 40 years, that we have allowed it to become this oppositional framing here, where, well, we're going to have to give up jobs in this neck of the woods if we're going to make a transition to this form of clean energy. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I actually think that we could make more consistent and less, herky-jerky progress towards actually transitioning to increasing our wind capacity in this state without making people feel so alienated. If we ensured that any piece of funding that's going to make a transition and ensures that anyone who's going to lose a job in their current industry as part of that has the opportunity for retraining and the opportunity for employment where they're living, if that's what they want. Again, that's a matter of dedicating federal resources to make sure that that happens and to make sure that we're not leaving people behind so that they don't leave, in this instance, the Democratic Party behind because they don't feel like their basic interests are being represented in the course of that.
Anything else? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Appreciate that answer. So many things that are happening so fast with climate change that we have disasters hitting us one after another, extreme weather conditions. To think that it was 67 degrees in Billings mid-January is kind of unbelievable. But to think about trees budding out right now and the damage to plants that could happen, out there, just these little things that happen. I guess I'm kind of planting the seed. What would you do immediately if you were elected to bring help to us? The farther you're up in the system, the more sensitive you are to climate impacts. So whether it's extreme drought, complete lack of snowfall, word things where, entire forests blow down or catastrophic fire or whatever, loss of orchards because of early budding and then freezing again, whatever it might be, simply having a warm winter and then all the moose die from too many insects, too many parasites on them. Just these threats that are at us right now, nearly 40 to, well, some people say 60% loss in bird diversity just over the last 10 years. The weird diseases are coming through and spreading. I guess, what would you do to how would you react to Montana? Would you empower disaster emergency services better? Would you be providing shifts or more resiliency to us? What we look at things is, our highway is a climate change adaptation where we're allowing unrestricted wildlife to go across what we call a highway fence with wildlife passages, protecting connectivity, having more resiliency in populations where we have more instead of less so they can withstand deviations in the environment. I guess that's my question to you. What have you been thinking about?
Yeah, in the immediate sense, my background outside of my policy and organizing work is, of course, wildland fire and forestry. And we exist in Western Montana right in the wildland urban interface in a lot of this area. And on the back end of 100 plus years of wide scale fire suppression that has not taken into account the fact that we all have a price to pay on the back end of that. And the main things I'm going to be talking about in this campaign are how we fix a housing crisis and a broken healthcare system and childcare, because you got to be able to fill your fridge before you are able to think about broader issues like this. But I want to talk about how we should actually reinvest in public lands and public service, not just by filling the 20 or 30% of roles that we've lost, be that with trails crews completely decimated or rec crews or all of the different scientists that we've lost on our forests. But we pay for forest management and wildfire the same way that we pay for housing or homelessness or healthcare. We wait until it's a complete crisis and an emergency, and then we pay for it on the back end in the most expensive, least effective way possible. We wait until there's a 62-year-old woman sitting in the emergency room because she couldn't afford a primary care visit. And then we pay for it because you are entitled to get that medical care in the ER. You have to be sought to, and that ends up in all our health insurance premiums. And that's not the most compassionate or cost-effective way to pay for it. And it's the same with forest management. We wait until it's a wildfire. And then you end up as a firefighter making $18 an hour watching more money than you will make in a lifetime dropped in retardant, sometimes into our waterways, to stop this thing before it burns into a subdivision. So really, it might, sound shocking to some folks, but I think we ought to be investing 3 to 5 times as much upfront in our forest management so that we can have good paying jobs right here. We just had a wildfire outside of Helmville this year. That was 2,000 acres and cost the state $56 million. That is not the best way that we can be investing taxpayer resources. And for $56 million, that could be 2,000 good paying jobs of people stomping around the woods with a chainsaw and with Pulaski's actually engaged in active forest management to make sure that we aren't caught off guard and on our heels when we have a fire burning into a subdivision or into somebody's backyard. So I mean, that's the most immediate sense here is I think we could be a whole lot more effective and a whole lot more cost effective if we hired a whole lot more folks as public servants to engage in fuels mitigation work and creating defensible space in all of our communities to save us money on the back end, but actually to start catching up on this backlog of forest management and unburned fuel and dense tree stands where we have, lodgepole that ought to be on a 15 to 20 year burn cycle, but hasn't burned in 50, 60, 70 years in our forests. And I think that would also go a whole lot ways to solving a lack of good paying jobs that we have in a lot of these communities, despite the fact that we're surrounded by this incredible resource of public lands. And I think that's one of a lot of ways we could start responding to the downstream effects of climate change, where we're starting to see mega fires. And, a lot of firefighters here in the state have been on 2, 3 of the biggest fires in state history just in the last 8 years.
Sam, I'm wondering what you know about Flathead Lake level.
I know it's lower than we'd like. And I was simply following from the outside some of what seemed to be the tension around those levels. Yeah, I mean, it seems like something that is, again, on the downstream side here of some much larger forces at work here. And when we have what I would imagine is some pretty darn diminished snowpack as I drive around the state, it seems like it's going to be a continuing problem. And yeah, I would love to hear from y'all in terms of what you see as like the long-term way to address that and deal with the fact that we might not have as much snowpack in our watershed as we'd like to maintain those levels.
Other question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one last comment. One of the difficulties we have is being treated equally, like as states and for funding and direct things. One of the things that we created a couple of different organizations back in the past for, been here a long time, fortunately, was trying to collect money that we're paying in on and never receive a benefit from. And a couple of those are what we call excise taxes, federal excise taxes on sporting good equipment and things of that nature that come back to states to help fund fish and wildlife programs. Tribes have never been included in that. And so when I buy my fishing pole and fishing tackle and I pay that federal excise tax on the manufacturer level, they pay it for me and then it comes through to me as cost of the consumer. That money is not coming back to the reservation to be spent on the resource it's designed for. When Congress created that act, they did that so that federal, states, and other locals would do fish and wildlife management. And they did this scheme for federal excise tax to help fund that. Required states to have licensing programs. In order to get the money, you had to have fishing licenses and hunting stamps or hunting licenses and a regular program management. And then you could apply for this funding. It's really critical. Montana gets, I think, nearly 40 or 50 million a year from that. And tribes get zero. But they count our population, our land base, our licenses, and we all pay those taxes, whether it's your boat gas, your boat, your trailer, your whatever, your camper, the big ones are guns and ammo. That's your big one. That's really funds a lot of wildlife programs. Tribes aren't allowed to do that. If you were elected, would that be something you'd be interested in co-sponsoring or bringing forward as a bill?
You're talking a bill to make sure that part of those federal excise taxes are coming to the tribes. That sounds like common sense to me.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. I would love to. Yeah, I cannot see any issues in the way you've described that whatsoever. That sounds like something I'd support, and I've already got a couple issues. It sounds like you and I ought to follow up on.
That's been a challenge for us. We created the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society to deal with this nearly 40 years ago, and we haven't had any success yet today.
Have you found any support with our?
We have
congressional
with our local, not the Republican Party. No, different Democrats we have. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's something I would love to work with you on. Absolutely.
Ingle Johnson What else?
Dingle Johnson, Pittman Robertson, Wallop Bro, those are the ones. Even Land and Water Conservation Act. All of them, there's the Clean Vessel Act, there's just a ton of them that we don't get any funding from directly, but the states do.
Well, yeah, that sounds like something I would love to work with you on. I'll do some research and follow up with you directly to get myself educated on it. Thank you, sir.
Well, it looks like we have no more questions. We appreciate the visit and hope once you're elected, you don't forget to come back.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for the time, and I think I got my homework for me. So I'll be reaching out soon. Appreciate it.
Happy New Year and safe travels.
Thank you.
Good luck. Morning, John.
Good morning. Morning, Council. This morning I'm here to look for approval for task order 305. It's for a total of $437,102. It's the BMAR funding for through IHS. And what we're looking for is again approval on, we're tearing out the carpet and replacing with vinyl in 5 areas. And basically it's for health and sanitation reasons in the tribal health facilities. One is the Arlee Community Health Center. 2 is the Arlee Community Center, the St. Ignatius Health Center, St. Ignatius Fitness Center, and the Polson Tribal Health. And again, that's for a total of $437,102.
Questions? Motion by Martin, second by Carol. Question.
I have a couple questions, John. Who owns the home floor covering? That's who the subcontractor is?
Yes. That is Gary Green.
Gary Green?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand the process because I know we work with SKMM. How is there bids out like for subcontracts, or does this contractor able to just choose the subcontractor?
The contractor often puts bids out,
Okay.
and they do have a preference list also with and it's past work, price, Indian preference. They try to throw all that in.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Other questions? We have the motion by Martin, second by Carol, all in favor? We are unanimous. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, guys. Hey, Chad.
Not that I don't need that.
We need it. We need it.
If I could, I'm looking somewhere in the second week of February to invite council to a SKT orientation. MM will be part of that, and then the rest of SKT. Second Wednesdays, I think on the 11th. If there's a better date for council, if not, I'll put it out there. 11th is a Wednesday. We're looking potentially up at the SKT offices. But anyway, just wanted to get that out there.
Martin and Jamie.
Probably the same thing everyone's gonna say. That's the Kootenai Elders meeting day is the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay, we can switch to, yeah, that's, we can switch that to whatever we need to. I'm there every day. We can do that Monday if that works better. Okay, yeah.
Hey, Jamie.
Martin, aren't you good? You're gonna be at NCI and I'm gonna be gone that end of that week.
Pretty well versed in chat.
Is that a compliment? Okay, just
You
checking.
keep us well informed.
Okay.
Blanked on with S. Like ET, you know, so I was like, Chad.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're looking at the 9th. Is that what we're looking at?
If that would work, good for council.
Afternoon of the 9th?
Yep, I'll put something in, or Catherine will. That's all.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you all very much.
Happy New Year. We got Sam? You're up. Come on up. Happy New Year.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. We are here today just for a quick contract modification approval. So the contract with Moving Mountains is how we provide our pediatric speech and occupational therapy services. And in July of 2025, that contract term was extended to September 30, 2026. The contract budget, the not to exceed amount, wasn't increased when the term was extended. And so we are just doing a modification today to adjust the not to exceed amount because we have reached the ceiling of the original proposed not to exceed amount.
Do we know how much?
So the original amount, are we okay to talk about that in open or should we go to executive? Okay, so the original agreement was 357,000 for a 1-year term. And so I just doubled it to add in for the second year of service.
Other questions? Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, who is Moving Mountains Therapy Center?
They are a pediatric therapy service out of Missoula. Laura Olsenowski is who owns the company, and then Bridget McGrath and Kelsey Christopher are who provide the services. So they do Ronan Tribal Health Clinic on Tuesdays, and then they provide services at Nkusum on Wednesdays. And so then they do all of that through their tribal health contract.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Motion to change so it's just the 700,000?
Yeah, so we're just we're changing the not to exceed from 357 to 715.
Modification to, what's the label of the contract? To the Moving Mountains contract?
Moving Mountains Therapy Center.
Motion by Martin. I have a second. Second by Bing. Any other discussion? All in favor? I got it. Unanimous.
All right. Thank you all.
Happy New Year, Sam.
Yes. Have a great day.
We'll go for a break
Now we're a little ahead of time.
until about 10:15 or 10:20.
10:20.
Okay.
Break till 10:20.
All right. So Michelle Mitchell's online and Jamie is online. Is that what I understand? Okay.
And James Junior's online.
Oh, and James. Okay. Everybody, this is Gail Perryman. She's our TNTA specialist here. Part of our requirement for the Office of Head Start is to provide the tribal governance training to our tribal council and our policy council. So we scheduled this afternoon for her to have about 30 minutes to go over the highlights of the governance requirements. And then this evening, she'll be presenting to our policy council. So I will turn it over to you, Gail.
Thank you. Can you tell me how I can?
Yep, right there, just scroll down.
She said.
Just scroll.
Oh, go down.
Liz. Just scroll it down for her. That's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Technical.
Okay.
issues. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the Head Start. You should have in front of you the Head Start governance and the eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance training. So thank you. I want to thank you for this time that I have to be able to be in front of you. And I'm going to talk about the Head Start performance standards and the intersection of the management, the policy council, and the tribal council to come together to oversee a high quality program, because that's what is needed in order for the children's services to be the best that they can be. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Oh, okay.
Oops.
Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay, sorry
So
about
you
that.
want me to do it.
If you can do it, that would
can
be
do it,
great.
you
Thank
just
you.
tell me what.
Okay, so for the learning objectives, again, this is about considering the purpose of Head Start and how it aligns with tribal communities. And it's about the responsibilities and the composition of the governing body, the tribal council, policy council, and the management staff. And then I talked about the systems, and I'm also going to talk about just that role of governance in the all-important issue of enrollment for these children. So Head Start is a very unique and well-run program when you have leadership coming together. So you see in this square, you see leadership and governance, and you see in the middle, what the goal is quality child and family outcomes. And I have to stop here for a second and let you know that you all have a very well-run program. I have many other recipients that I go and I support. So I can say with confidence that Carrie and her staff are on it, and they are really working strongly to continue that quality learning program. And you all should be very proud. Your program is quite good, and it's a joy to come see. Every time I come, there's fresh ideas, new incentives, and just a lot of involvement. So just want you to know that. So we talk about your children. You have 177 children, 90 early Head Start, 177 Head Start for 267 children. That's quite a large size program. So it's federal funds. Of course, we have a lot of legislation and regulatory requirements. We have the Head Start Act, which was enacted by Congress, signed in law in 2007 by President Bush. And then we've got the Head Start program performance standards. Knowledge of and adherence to those. I mean, I think I saw one of these guys, their desk and their, maybe it was yours, and the program performance standards are dog-eared and it's fading. Yeah, you can see. I mean, it's just very impressive because those are turned into policies and procedures, and they're rolled out to staff. And the big why, that's the big why we have to do certain things. So we're going to go past that because we've already talked about the management structure, talked about there is a governance reference book, and I'll stop here for a second. There is no more ECLAC. If you've been trained before, you've probably heard the term ECLAC. That's Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center. They got rid of all that, and now they just call it headstart.gov. And anything you want to know and everything you want to know about Head Start is in headstart.gov. So just to let you know, that's where you go for a lot of this stuff. And if you want to know a program performance standard, or if you want to know what is the nearest Head Start to this program, all of that stuff is there. So I'm going to go on to governance. So this is the purpose of governance we talked a little bit about. But there's also the makeup of the governing body, the policy council, the parent committees. There's training that has to happen, not only just to you, but tonight I'll be training the policy council. And of course, the policy council is made up of parents whose children are currently enrolled, community members, and then Carrie and her staff as advisory. And really what their job is to oversee the direction of the program, to provide their insight as a parent. And then that rolls up to approval of different actions, such as a grant. And let's say there's money out there for a health grant worth $200,000. They're going to provide input into that. And then Carrie would bring it to you all for approval. So again, they're working together with management's working together with policy council. And then of course, tribal council is the overall, because you all do have the legal and fiduciary responsibility for the grant. That's fine. So the composition, government or tribal, is one fiscal expert, educational expert, attorney, or more members from the community. And if they're not sitting on the tribal council, then of course you all already, I'm aware that you already have those entities probably on speed dial. Yeah. So, okay. Okay, let's keep going on that one. So they talk about duties and responsibilities. What are the duties and responsibilities of tribal council? I'm not going to read this for you. I'm only going to say that the real oversight of the fiscal and the legal parts are what Carrie would be bringing to you. You're not meant to know all the ins and outs of Head Start. As I said to one of my council members, governing body members, I asked him a question and he said, look, that's what I pay you money for. And that's what they pay Carrie for. And Carrie knows it inside and outside. And she's the one that if she doesn't know it, she sure as heck knows who to go to find that out. So this is the policy council. I've talked about them. I want to get to a little bit more about. Okay, so this is what we have to do for governing body and for policy council, which is what you're doing now. Again, like I said, it's going to happen for Policy Council tonight. But there's also, Head Start also wants to ensure that there is an impacts policy for conflicts. So if the Policy Council is hot and heavy about something and they really want to push it, and the Tribal Council says, yeah, no, I don't think so, there's something to fall back on in terms of procedures and how you move forward. I personally have never seen it. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've never seen it, but that's how thorough Head Start is in their supporting of the oversight of their funds. Okay, so this is really important because there is a lot of data collected, and there for good reason, right? Because it rolls up into annual reports to Congress so that they know what's happening, how many kids, what's the growth and development, and all kinds of different information. Well, this information is gathered by Carrie and her staff, and it's shared to the Policy Council. And what's shared to the Policy Council is also shared to you all as the Tribal Council. You get packets on a monthly basis, and I'm kind of go over some of that stuff for you so that you're aware if you ever have any questions, you can look at your packet, and or if it was me, I'd just call Carrie and say, hey, where do I find this information? So in terms of the Head Start responsibilities, I already talked about this, but I am going to say that I'm going to go into in a minute is that Policy Council packet and the specifics of what you all need to know. It ranges from and I don't know if you know this, there's an annual report that Head Start, all Head Starts put out for their community. So anybody in the community can look and see, how much money is this grant? Oh, okay. How much is provided in match? How many kids did you serve? Where were the majority of your funds spent? Which we all know internally it's personnel, right? And all different kind of questions. So that's something that's relatively new. That is, it is, I don't know exactly where you guys put it, but most people put it on their webpage. Your annual report?
I don't know that we've posted it, but we've had,
Please use your mic, Carrie.
I don't think we've posted our annual report on the website. That's something that we can start doing, but we've just provided.
Issue is, which is helpful, is the different reports, as I was saying, the whole issue of tracking the budget and making appropriate revisions. I can tell you right now that Office of Head Start is making a concerted, strong, and consistent effort to look at grantees across the nation and ensure that their drawdowns and their funds are on a timely basis. I have seen grantees have funds recaptured because the drawdowns haven't been submitted. So fortunately, that is not you all, but I tell, the different tribal councils that I talk to, that it's important to have such oversight because, we're talking over $4 million for the welfare of, and the growth and development of your young children and their families. And we want to make sure none of that's recaptured, right? Just because a report wasn't filled. So, super important. These are all the different documents. So Carrie makes sure that that's done. And basically that's to ensure that, this program is ever morphing and changing to the needs of the community. It has to represent what the needs are and in the areas that are needed. Of course, an org chart speaks for itself. The monthly report is what all of this rolls up to. And that's something that anybody can look at. And it refers to, okay, well, what's happening in health and disabilities? How many children with disabilities do you have on an ongoing basis in this area? Oh, wow, you've got this many kids and this is many with autism or this many with diagnosed autism or whatever. This is how many lunches, USDA funds that you've drawn down, and this is how many lunches that are provided. Annual report I talked about, monitoring results. Actually, you guys have a monitoring coming up and it's called a class assessment monitoring. And that's going to be happening in 45 days. Yeah. 45 days. Office of Head Start monitors, grant is for 5 years. They have a monitoring FA1, FA2, and then a class monitoring. So they're always looking to see and ensure that, funds are being spent where they need to be spent and based on the standards and all of the fiscal rulings, that it's compliant. The Office of Head Start does have program information publications that anybody can see. They also have information memorandums and have program instruction. Those are things that are really important for Carrie and her staff. The minute they come out, it could be, hey, this is Office of Head Start literally made issues. So all this money came down, and as soon as it came out, they sent out an information memorandum and said, hey, if you want some of this $2 million, whatever it was, go ahead and send us in, a grant, a supplemental grant, and we'll look at your request. So, early bird gets the worm. Minute Carrie got that. Did you apply? I think you did.
We did, but we didn't.
You didn't get?
It's on file.
It's on file. Okay. So that's how you know about those things. And of course, the fiscal budget to actual monthly, which is, you get that already, I believe. And of course, any grant application, nothing is going to be applied for until you all approve it. It goes to Policy Council so that they can amend or suggest it, but you would need to approve it. Okay, and I kind of went over some of this, so I am going to say that for governing body and for tribal council, if enrollment, recruitment, selection, eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance, or SIA is what they call it, that's super important because it's rules and regulations, policies and procedures around who gets in and what's the criteria for a group of families to get in, who gets in before another, what have you. Good. Okay, so non-federal share, as I'm sure you're aware, Head Start provides 4/5 of the cost. You guys provide the other fifth, 20%, and it's a cash match as needed. And it could be services or goods, but as I'm sure you're aware, that 20% goes to help pay for what is most costly, which is staffing. So it is super important. You go past that one. And the program planning cycle, it's just, it's brilliant in its makeup for Head Start because you can see through this. Look, Head Start has five-year grant, but it also has goals and objectives, and it has, it's one of the busiest jobs in the world because you're constantly amending, you're constantly reviewing data, and you're looking for better ways to do things. You're looking for, wins, huge wins. And my coworker who came with me here, she was just working with Carrie's staff today, and she just has all these stickies, and she has all of the, these are the different wins. These are different huge things that your program has that should be celebrated. And here are areas that, we're going to work on to strengthen. It's constantly looking at that. They don't ever sit and go, okay, done. Hey, hope it's going well in the classroom over there. You can go on. So I talked about the monitoring, so that was that one. And I talked about the impasse policy, so I talked about that one. You can keep going. Okay, and I'm going to stop right here because I can kind of rattle on because I'm concerned about time and I want to make sure that I respect your time. Does anybody have any questions based on anything that I've gone through or anything at all about Head Start?
Yeah, It strikes me that one of the most important parts in here is the working relationship between the policy council and the tribal council.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm curious as to how that communication link has been assessed. Are there any recommendations or reviews on that that we should be aware of so that we can affect that working relationship with the policy council that we need?
That's an excellent question. And I really am going to turn it back to you all because what the opportunities are, there's several opportunities. So if this tribal council says, look, I don't feel like we know enough, we want to know more. I've had tribal council members sit on a policy council. They're not a voting member, but they can come to the policy council meetings and, you know, they're sitting there along with the families and maybe have dinner, like we're going to have dinner tonight with the families, and hear and have access to Carrie and her staff. So that's one option. In terms of ongoing analysis, every year Head Start programs have what's called a self-assessment. And the tribal council is part of that self-assessment. It's sitting down with a member or liaison at the tribal council and saying, hey, I just want to know, how do you feel like communication is with the tribal council? Do you have any suggestions about how we can make it better? You know, are we taking too much time on trainings, or what works? You know, and really, so really it's up to you all about what you want. If you guys want more information, if you want more insight, absolutely. And I can work with Carrie and we can make it happen. Does that answer your question?
For the most part, the one part that isn't is, has there been an assessment of what's currently in place? And in particular, I would like to hear from the parents or the policy council about what they want to see in that. And so I don't know if that's reviewed and reported or not.
Actually, I'm not sure about last year. I would say perhaps not, because it's something that would come up in self-assessment. And now that we know, self-assessment time is coming up in the early spring. And that is something that Carrie can put forward to the families and say, hey, you know, this came up in a meeting I had with tribal council, and we're wondering, what are your thoughts? What would you like to see? Because we know you don't have time, and neither would it be appropriate to bring parents in here, but there could be parent work groups, and you know, a tribal member could come and talk to them, you know, based on your time. So there are ways to better assess that relationship and what might be needed. Sometimes they don't necessarily understand how much you guys know. They don't realize that you guys get all these reports and what have you, and this and that and the other, and you know a lot. And they're not really sure because they're not in front of you, but we can definitely delve deeper into that. And I'm glad you brought that up because it's perfect timing. Does that help? Okay, so Carrie's got that.
I don't think we've ever really had that issue, hi Jamie, where there's been that, where they felt there was that lack of connection. The director has always provided information, or if something was brought up at policy council that needed council action, I mean, it's always worked that way. They are certainly invited if we want to come in to council. They're invited if they want to, when we have interviews. So they, I don't know, I haven't seen where there's been an issue, but we can, you guys can designate somebody to our policy council too. That would be wonderful.
Go ahead, Carol.
I almost forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
If you look at the council right now, you don't see too many younger people who have children in the system. But as a grandma who recently had, and probably Jamie, have children in the Head Start system, probably within the last 3 or 4, 5 years, this program is so awesome, involving parents It's unbelievable. And until you're associated with it the way a parent is, you're not going to see that. But I'll tell you, they do everything they possibly can to make sure that you show up and you're involved. But these are little kids, so most of the time parents are there. And they appreciate what Head Start offers, especially working parents. Well, I mean, all parents, but working parents who, like my little guy had disabilities.
Okay.
And he went there 0 to 3 and then all the way on up. And I tell you, it brought him out of everything they said he would never do. He was able, when he went on to public school, it was awesome.
Congrats.
And,
That's awesome.
but I think the reason why we don't, or I don't know, maybe Greg has a grandchild that say, we haven't heard too much about the policy council, but if you haven't, I think it's because a parent's not involved as they should be. But certainly they feed you, they give you free things. I mean, everything to draw people in. So certainly I think they do everything they can. And I think it's probably the most awesome program we have as a tribe.
Thank you. Head Start has a whole component dedicated to family outcomes. And so dedicated to sitting down and working with them and saying, hey, what do you need to be successful? What does successfulness look like for you? Well, it's my GED. All right, this is how we can help you. Or it could be, I need a livable wage job. Okay, we're going to help you with that. Or substance abuse runs in my family and all those different things. So there's a huge kind of a social component to making sure that because families are the child's number one teacher, right? And so we've got to get to the families to be able to make positive impacts for long-term for them. We've got to get to the parents to make positive impacts for the families or caregivers for the families. So that's why there's a lot of work in that area. But your point is well noted, and we're going to be doing that you'll hear more back. Okay. Okay, so this is
Another question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Say, sometimes that you don't have the number of students that you like to have in your programs. And it says here that you sometimes have the discretion to consider eligibility for Head Start services regardless of income. Do you take those students in that are over income guidelines like that?
AIAN programs can, regular programs cannot. And that's primarily because as a Head Start director, you have eligibility criteria. Because what are you going to do? You have to have something, right, to show who gets in for whom. So, and you want to take those children. We want the neediest of the needy. But this is just to identify that there are a lot of Head Start families that, their eligibility might have been, or their income might have been like $1 over. And they weren't getting in, but they were very, very needy. And Head Start, this is an example of how tribes across the country really worked with members of Congress to say, hey, something's got to change here. You have to see what we're up against and what we need. And I'm very happy. This started in March of last year. I'm very happy to say that they were very responsive, and that's how this got in there. So yeah, there's eligibility criteria, but in terms of income, and I don't even know, do you guys take income as you do? See, some do, some don't.
We do not.
We don't, they don't, yeah. Most of them don't. They don't, anything to do with it.
We don't collect income, but we do collect. Part of the criteria is if the family is on SNAP benefit, so they get a certain amount of points for that. So that really is the basic income, the only type of income. We would need proof of SNAPs, but they also would then get, going with this, they would get points for if they're a CSKT tribal member, and then points for if they're a descendant, a CSKT, and then of another tribal member or a descendant of another tribe. And And then, of course, they get points for health concerns or health diagnose, or if they have a disability, or if they have an IEP or IFSP with their disability. They also, if they're a foster child or if they're homeless.
Yeah, I was just wondering because of the enrollment. I know Jeannie used to come in and say that they were short on enrollment.
Yeah, we are now. We received our letter that we are fully enrolled, so that's
They've been doing really well this year.
wonderful. Yeah.
There's so many programs under what's called FEI, Full Enrollment Initiative. And it's an intensive amount of work that Office Head Start does with the directors. But that is not the case. They are doing very well.
We actually have a waiting list now for our early 0 to 3. And we just are at full for 3 to 5 with waiting lists in some areas.
Yes.
Okay, so we're almost done. I'm out of time here, so keep going. Okay. Okay, we already talked about that. So that's the selection criteria. I said eligibility, but I meant how they select the families. We talked about that. Go ahead. Eligibility, we talked about that. Okay, and this is just the ages. Early Head Start 0 to 3, Head Start 3 to 5. And this just basically says that Head Start really wants to make sure that people who are finding children and families eligible don't break the rules, and there isn't a funny business going around with they're just allowing their families, their personal family members in, but no one else, that kind of a thing. And that's all the records that Carrie and her staff have to take, and then that is it. So I apologize, went 2 minutes over, but have I answered questions, or I've got some really good thoughts from you all, so thank you.
The questions? Thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, council. Have a good day.
Be safe. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year.
All righty. Good afternoon, council. Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and the rest of council. Today we're in here just for our 26 orientation, just for any of the new faces or any of the existing council that just want to know more about the department and what we do. So do have a little bit of a slide presentation, and then I'll just introduce some of the staff. They'll stand up and just kind of let you know who they are by faces. I do have some staff members that are out sick, so unfortunately they will not be in. So the mission statement of the Lands Department is to provide real estate and land management services that guide the land and resource use for the ownership of in a manner that protects the natural and cultural resources while promoting Indian self-sufficiency and tribal sovereignty. CSKT compacted back in the early 90s, the realty office, and then we went with all of the realty services within the Bureau. So we are a 638 compact tribe. Tribal Lands Department provides the real estate services, including acquisition, disposal, leasing, and permitting, federal probates, tribal records management, and storage. The department to date is about 32 individuals on staff right now. We do have a couple that are furloughed off right now for the winter months, but we do have a 39 capacity. But over the years, it has changed. The dynamics of it is that more field staff has actually came on to get us up to that 39 individuals. We have a lot more property than we did in the 90s with all the acquisitions that the tribes have done. So our department has seen some growing pains and some curtailment and then some more growing pains again, trying to get back into a balance of the right management style that is needed in the department. Over the years, we have seen the effects of succession planning with the loss of staff members quickly, where we didn't have a chance to get the right background information done or the trainings done for the BIA to do the services that the department is needing. We are right now in the process of getting those ones back up into functionality. That has taken many years to do. We do have individuals that are taking the training courses, our realty side of it, the realty specialists. We finally got them trained up. We got our other individual right now is going to be in training next week to be going in to get their fee to trust certificate so they can be assisting Holly Hitchcock. Probate specialist, Francis Gary has given notice that after 30 plus years with the tribes, almost 40 years with the tribes, that she's going to be retiring. And we have two individuals, Ashley Kinmill and Joanne Plant, that will be coming in behind her. We're just waiting for the probate specialist trainee jobs to intro and moving up to specialists, those to be coming back through under TAMS. They had one that came up in December, talking with Francis, and within a short period of time, a couple of days, it was completely full. And a lot of the specialists out there right now didn't even get into it because of the need of federal probate specialists throughout the BIA. So hopefully they'll be scheduling a few more of those in advance. And we'll be able to get on to them. The network works on a few different operation systems. We have to do the BIA TAMS, which is a separate system altogether. That is all managed and maintained by the BIA. So any computer hard drive failures or anything like that goes back through the regional office to get any of that work done. OSD of Special Trust is not called that no more. And Protract is now, that was the tracking system through the BIA for probates. Now that is going through the TAMS, and you have to do the probate module before you could do that work. And that's where we're at right now. That just came out recently. So now we're having to wait on that probate module to get them certified in that. And that's the Ashley and Joanne's system that they would be working on. Tribal Lands worked off of the land management system, LMS, for multiple years, 20 plus years. It was an outdated software. We are transitioning now over into Pandel operating system. It has similar functionality as TAMS, but it helps out the office for the fee parcels or any billings or anything else we can do that TAMS does not do for the fee side of it. The fee simple properties the tribes buy. It also has the capability of mapping and real-time mapping on it. So they will have all their reports right there. They can do their field report and it would be updated right into the system. So everybody will be visual to it who has access to that operating system. So it's working out some minor quirks still, getting the staff all trained on it. It's taken about a year to get put in place. Desiree Nault, the business manager, she has been the lead in that, and she's been doing her due diligence. I do not know if she's in the office because she did have a 1 o'clock, but I thought I saw her behind me. And then we just used the regular CSKT land service, our land operating system there that is under CSKT for our email, internet, financial programming systems, on base and so forth. So our financial branch of the Tribal Lands Department is Desiree Nault, the business manager. Glenda Pierre, who is out sick today, is the business assistant. She is training underneath Desiree to be able to step into those shoes anytime Desiree is going to be out on vacation or out sick, that she can keep the day-to-day business operations of the office going. Alicia Adams just came on a little while ago as the front office assistant. Glad to have her. We like to utilize our staff that come in is maybe some in-house promotions to fill some other positions if they are interested.
Mark, could you have them at least stand?
Desiree, Alicia. So the Lands Title and Records Office, LTRO, George is not down here. He was working in the office. He's under contract right now. He's still the manager, kind of at the manager role, since the LTRO office takes two individuals to be doing the work. One has to do the initial workup, the other one has to approve. That's George and Marla's positions. Marla is the specialist, transitioning to the manager position. She is out sick today also, and Holly Berland is out on personal. She is the LTRO technician trainee. So our LTR office is needing to get it up to par. George is still there. Marla is there. She does have some health issues, and then now the Holly Berland, she did take this week off. Realty Services is Stormy Gardapi, and the secondary position on it is vacant at this time. We are getting ready to advertise or look at doing an in-house promotion over to that position. The right-of-way easement position is actually vacant. Holly Hitchcock is the acting specialist right now, but she is also the division manager for the Realty Services. So she's got some dual roles. She's also doing a lot of the heavy lifting right now for Stormy, and working with her and Roberta Decker as our contract employee. Stormy has the training next week. She was in earlier today, but has left, I believe, out sick. She's got the training next week. Hopefully she'll be certified with the Feed of Trust. So then we'll have the two certified Feed of Trust individuals. Holly right now took on that role as the division manager to get that training and start moving some properties crossed over to trust. We got one right now, individual trust getting moved forward. And we have another one of the water compact purchases moving forward. But Holly also is overseeing the right-of-way and easements, the right-of-ways and the easements and the appraisals for the office. Under the federal probates, we have for closing of the probates and that, and the specialist and supervisor of the probates is Frances Scary. I think she came down. Nope, she did not.
Yeah, Frances is behind you. She can stand.
Did she?
Stand up, Frances.
There she is. She was hiding on me. Ashley Kenmel is one of the probate technicians in training. We're hopefully going to be getting into a training as soon as they are done. And Joanne was out today. But yes, we have some individuals going to have some big shoes to fill after they get their training on to fill the years that Frances has been in probates. This is the administrative special projects individual planner, Tyler Kelsch, if you would stand up. The property management special projects planner is a newer position that we had just put on the organizational chart back in 2025. They oversee all the TLD special projects and maintains a tracking log for each project. Currently been working on the skate parks, basketball court, celebration grounds, vaulted toilets, community improvement projects, cemetery maintenance, the rentals maintenance that we have to do on them, the new inheritance of the Gray Wolf Trailer Park. We're looking at that one, assist with USDA projects with AJ Bigby when available, working on the Polson vendor site to get the power put in right now. The other part of it, he works with the SNK Business Service, James Bible. We talk about different projects that maybe his program needs to be looking at of taking over for us, or if we're going to be doing it first and then he takes them over underneath his realm of getting them out into the leasing and renting part of it. Oversees the CSKT hay farms or haying operations that we have right now with the Sago property and the Valley View purchases. Tyler right now just came from a meeting with the rest of the staff, working with Jesse Johnson, the manager of those properties right now, trying to come up with a management plan to present back to council on how the operational plan needs to be looking for the next 5 years. Since we are in day 2 planning to try to get it up and running fully and functional before operational season. And then any other of the special projects that come around that he gets involved in right off the bat. So that is Tyler Kelch.
Got a question. Go ahead, Jamie.
The Gray Wolf Trailer Park is on that list. I was at a gaming meeting last week with the SNK Gaming LLC, and the Gray Wolf Trailer Park came up. So has it been transferred to them? Or is it still under you, or what is the status?
It is under us. We have been trying to reach out to Brian Miller himself after Bing had brought it up last month's, I think it was last month's land committee meeting, that he was at the meeting also, that one in December, and they talked about it. So we need to get through to Brian and then also to the board itself. It wasn't really looking at transitioning it over to them fully. It was looking at working with them to see what they could be doing to assist for workforce development. If they would be interested in taking it over, or working with us if places were available for them to be able to entice people to come down and work at Gray Wolf by getting a place over there. If they are the ones that bought the trailer or anything that's on the lot, but they would be able to rent that lot at a reduced rate potentially, and so forth. So we have a lot of more work to do. We are in the pre-planning right now. Tyler and them are on it of trying to look at expanding Gray Wolf Trailer Park for about 20 more units. The issue there is water and sewer are the biggest issues, and that was one thing that Brian wanted to discuss, and Troy Felsman from the board. And that's right where we're at now, is working that out, trying to figure that part of it out.
Okay, yeah, that was what had come up, was that they said that they were trying to figure out about the water issues and the legal description of the land, and hadn't had contact with you. So, and it seemed unclear. Bing might have more, but it just seemed unclear of where that transition part was, or what was going on, so.
Yeah, because we've reached out to Brian, emailed out, trying to get him to answer back. Went to voicemail and his emails went unanswered. Tara Irvin and Rachel Big Sam both reached out to him, trying to get some dialogue going.
Bing, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, they were like Jamie was talking about. They wondering about the water and the sewer issue up there. They didn't know what was going to happen with that water system up there, and with that. I don't know what the whole situation is on it myself, Brian. Is it low water pressure or what with those trailers?
Well, I know that they have 2 different well systems, because the one well system was not large enough to support all of the units. So they have 2 separate well systems that gives the entire units all the water they need, and they have their sewer septic drain field off to the side. That goes out into the field area to the southwest.
I know that they had those 2 pumps, so I didn't know if that wasn't enough water for them.
No, it was just
or not.
For all of the units that are down there, the 13 total units, it did take 2 wells to supply the amount of water needed, the gallons per minute needed for that area. It was a deep well that they had to drill, so they ended up doing 2 deep wells. We were looking at, if we do the expansion there after talking with housing on it, of finding a new location on adjacent tribal property that could be piped in, hopefully to counterbalance that aquifer right there because of how deep it is.
Also, too, we talked about celebration grounds there, mentioned celebration grounds. My brother was down there the other day and he said that those kids are going down there busting them locks off those doors.
Yeah, we requested the keys from them because we are going down and we're gonna redo all of the stuff down there for locks and everything. And they were meeting Ronnie on Thursday to get all that stuff done so we could get them all chained.
Yeah, they're breaking them off. That's what's happening. They're breaking them locks right off the door. What my brother said the other day, that ones to the bathrooms are broke off, and I think one of the ones to the concession stands were broke off, he told me.
I'll follow up with staff on that one that we're down there. We can look at putting cameras up down there, yes.
Yeah, Tom, then Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark and Tyler, at the end of the month, Carol and I will probably be attending a push play meeting, talking about the playground equipment that we purchased to go in that Ronan spot. They're gonna want updates. So if do you guys have any schedule at all?
I don't know what the schedule is on that. All I know is that we, after coming back in here and discussing that with tribal health, wanting the walking paths marked off with some mileages. That is as far as I know the engineers have went again. And the relocation of the garden and playground to be kind of altered. They've never came back with any other plans. I'll reach out to everybody on the group to see if anybody else has seen anything, but I haven't at the lands office. We haven't seen anything else from that group. But I'll work with Tyler right after this.
You know, the push play board, I mean, they raised all the money to buy all that playground equipment. They really had hoped it would have been in, this last summer, but so I think they're really confident that there would be a real final schedule on construction replacement. And all we were doing was flip-flopping the playground with the
garden, right?
The garden, right, yeah. So
okay, that's all I thought we were doing too.
That's it. That's it.
That's the only holdup I thought was that was being flip-flopped. And then I know tribal health did throw the curveball about the walking paths. But that really hasn't went any further either for discussion points.
Jamie, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I know that gaming and the board, Brian and the board is coming in Thursday. And so possibly you guys could get together because I just know that that was a confusing issue at the meeting.
Good, Martin.
I thought the other change was changing the direction of the basketball court.
It was.
No, I decided I was going to leave it so they'd have to face the sun just for you, Martin. No, they were supposed to go north-south. And I think they had the one design already with the pickleball court and that both facing north-south. I think that was design 2. There was one facing east-west and then there was another one north-south. I will follow up to make sure that they had the basketball court and playground switched. And I know that they were talking about the walking paths, but there would be future walking paths being built as it expands. So I didn't know if that was going to be addressed right now or not, getting it moving forward.
I think, Mr. Chair, the main thing for the Ronan basketball courts is we want ours at 10 feet. All the other courts, Tyler, you put those baskets at like 9.6 or 11.5,
Just fluctuate them.
Yeah. Yeah. Small rims, extra big rims.
Have them, the poles twisted just a little bit. Tyler, we better be taking notes. The land plan management program manager, Alfred AJ Bigby. So he oversees approximately 11 USDA grants. He does the burned area emergency rehab and the burned area restoration plans. Those are the ones we get after wildland fire. He also operates the BIA noxious weed funding and the Montana noxious weed account that we get for small grants, but we do get it from the state. And he works on potential future grants through the USDA or Montana, or even the BIA for future projects and grants that he operates underneath to save our budgets a little bit by being able to charge to those. He's also in charge of the inventory and monitoring and compliance of all the agriculture and range. He also has the range specialist underneath him, which is a vacant position that he is acting in. But we have a range conservationist technician, and that is Mike Tennis. He is in the back row over there. We have a property management field crew, and they do the mowing. They assist with demos. They do the fencing when we don't have any in the mowing or any of the other projects going on, rental repairs. We, since inheriting the powwow ground management, the cemeteries and all the rental managements, and we have a lot of property out there that we have to be mowing. That is tribal properties throughout the communities. They are strictly, that's what their job is right now, is they actually maintain those properties for us throughout the year. Shay Earthboy is her second in command. They also do all the snow plowing for our rentals. We also have a property management fencing crew. They do the bare fencing, USDA contract fencing installations, the demos, property cleanup, rental repairs also. Right now we have the two individuals. Calvin Shepard is full-time and Shay Sheehan is furloughed right now. And he's on that side of the fencing crew. They work a lot of property throughout the year, and a lot of miles. We have the compliance office. Compliance program manager is Willie Birthmark. Compliance field officers are Louis McDonald. He's the home site compliance, but he also does the mineral gravel permits. And he also does the lot permits. So like the lots across from Super One Foods, he does those individual permits for them to sell firewood or whatnot. He also works with Christmas tree permits, firework permits, and so forth. Lee Grant, leasing compliance. He is actually the leasing compliance 2. He is actually the supervisor if he's number 2 in charge to step in for Willie to oversee the rest of the compliance and field crew. Albert Adams is another leasing compliance officer of ours. Jackson Adams is another leasing compliance officer of ours. Now you have Tony Adams Jr., home site compliance. Right now, Tony's been doing this last year. He's stepped up and he's been the one that's offering our home site compliance. He goes out and does the inspection. He goes out to the home site individuals and says, we can assist helping you get the garbage or anything hauled off. And he's been the one taking the time, dropping off, him and his crew that they work with, dropping off those trailers for the cleanup, going back and picking them up and going dumping them for the people if they don't have a vehicle or dump tags. So he's been doing that for the last year, and we did get a lot of cleanup done in many of the communities. We also have a compliance field crew. These individuals are the ones that we use on our ag leasing projects. Those are our fencing agreements that we have set up with our ag lessees. If we have none of those projects in place, they assist with the bear projects, then the demos, cleanups, and other property management duties. They assisted with the tear down of the old bathroom at the Arley Powwow grounds and hauling all that out, cleaning it up, doing some of the cottonwood removal along the canal, the wiring and so forth. They did a lot of work down there with our other field crew of the Arley Powwow grounds before powwow season hit. That is Herb Couture as the supervisor, Jeremiah Howard, one of the field crew, Chris McCrae, field crew, and he is furloughed right now also. Realty leasing program manager is Rachel Big Sam. The agricultural, she oversees the agricultural leasing, residential leasing, and business leasing. The agricultural leasing specialist oversees every one of our agricultural leases. They have approximately 350 to 400 agricultural leases they look at every year. And they try to keep the compliance on every single one of them. Plus, they oversee the 38 range units also in that capacity of that office. Residential leasing specialist Shara Hoskinson right now, she oversees approximately 1,360 to 1,400 residential leases out there. Those are the home site leases ranging from, quarter acre to 5 acre leases throughout the reservation. And then we have business leasing, who we actually have 64 different types of leasing out there. And that is Terra Urban. And Terra is out today. I know Cheyenne and Shara were behind me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Mark, on your ag leases there, if a person passes on, are they able to keep that lease in the family until that lease is expired?
Underneath the agricultural leasing, we used to have succession forms on it. And when the new land ordinance came out, due to the succession form, it actually contradicts the lease. So they got rid of the succession forms, the successor forms. That was back when Roger Swaney was in office. They did get removed because there were contracts that went out there, and when the tribal member did pass, the family got to stay on as non-members, utilizing that property for 5 and up to 10 years. And the other issue was when it came to home sites, same things were happening where the family was split. They were divorcing. The tribal member passed away and the non-tribal inherited the home and the home site for a 25-year lease. So due to the conflict of spousal rights that are in the contract of spousal rights and heirship to the children, that contradicted the successor forms. So there was confusions in them, and it came into fights over at court too. It was confusing for the court, so they were just removed. We have some old ones right now, some of the old leases that are phasing out that had successor forms on them, and then some that do not. We had a recent individual pass away. 2 of their leases were transitioning over to their children to be able to run on. I believe that individual had 2 that went to the children, 1 that did not, 1 or 2 that did not. We had another individual who, same thing, who passed away recently, tribal member, did not leave a successor form on all of them, but it has to go through the courts for ownership of the cattle and so forth. And the daughter didn't want to take, he had 1, I think, lease with a successor form still on it. She did not want to oversee him. She actually lived out of state. So she wanted to just relinquish them back over to the tribes to go back up for leasing.
Lived out of the country. I said she lived out of the country.
Yeah, it's a tough spot when that does happen, when people pass though, when it comes to leasing stuff. A lot of things have to go into play before anything can be done with any of this stuff, especially when it's a house involved, property involved, or even cattle. That's where tribal court they have to go through tribal court for the personal property like that, and the real estate property has to come back through the other federal system. So it does get a little tricky, and we always just ask everybody to come in with this when they're working with us, just to do just like what we do, succession planning, but also do, have that estate planning in place to kind of have that balanced out. So it's an easier transition, that it doesn't conflict with the leases that have to be in place and any kind of attempt that the successor forms have been used in the past. Because that has caused conflict where individuals have lost the home to how it's worded. So the department of goals and objectives, tribal lands, we work with title and records management services, probate services, and all realty services and manage the land for the tribal jurisdiction as outlined by tribal ordinances and defined by the self-governance compact between the Confederated Salish Kootenai tribes and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Very difficult to do, especially when we have to follow the BIA infrastructure and underneath self-governance compact, but we don't get to the equal or sufficient training that the BIA does out there. That is a mandatory service for us as a compact tribe. We've been working on it, fighting with it, talking with anywhere from regional to central and to the national level offices to try to get something handled. It looks like they finally listened. We're getting a little bit of movement, but we do have a memo drafted. I'm wanting to get to the chairman to look at, to sign off for intervention through the chair and council and legal to address those shortcomings of the BIA. One of our other goals is to manage performance of services provided by the department. That is going to be consistent with tribal council priorities, contractual obligations within the allocated budget developed and approved. The department itself, underneath all the different priorities of council, we look and work with the Homeless Coalition on our homeless issues that are out there right now, finding new properties, trying to find different arrays of things, how to leverage the tribal properties we have out there into assisting with the homelessness or low income housing units or anything else like that, to leverage them to be moving forward. Staying within our allocated budget for that, we are working on trying to get native language brought into our office on a daily basis, where we have labels throughout the office stating what each item, general item is with the traditional language of the Kootenai, Salish, and the Pend Oreille. We also look at doing a lot of outside grant opportunities. We look for outside funding to stretch our tribal dollar and move forward with different projects for stewardship of the land and the natural resources that are out there. We also provide fair and equitable opportunities to use for tribal land, issue permits and leases for land use. We offer them out for bids every time. We try to get all of our property and out there being utilized to assist the tribes in doing maintenance and management on them, and not just the department taking it on or the tribes spending the dollars on that. We assist in protecting and conserving cultural and historical areas, wildlife areas, or wetland areas, or any designated areas of tribal land requiring protection or conservation. We work with the other departments on that one also, of just looking at potential ways of leveraging some of our other properties that we have to create more conservation, or if it's a new purchase, to put some of that property aside for conservation. Sego Ranch was one of them. We're looking at doing some of the same, bartering some other properties with maybe doer of them buying dry land pasture or anything like that, where they could take some of the credits for wetland and so forth out of our egg leasing program. Enforce policy and regulations set forth by the ordinance and pertain the Tribal Lands Department. That is a objective of ours. It is a continuous goal to do that, and it is an obstacle. It does get pretty hard for the department to go and enforce the policies and regulations. Everything we do at the department affects somebody's livelihood. If it's home, if it's their commercial business, or if it's their agricultural business. Whatever we do at our office affects somebody personally. Even with the realty services of the acquisitions or disposals, that affects somebody financially. If we can't purchase the property for 2 years, it does stretch them down the line. We also, we wanted to develop and do reports for activities completed by the department, including but not limited to the revenue projections, financial obligations of the department, collections and debt management. We want to have those operation plans in effect so you guys can review and see them of the new haying operation from those ranches that we just bought. Get that work operational plan for you guys so you can see where we're at, what goes on with it, what are the next steps. And with that, also with the other department programs, weed management program, the new management plans that are out there that we're working on, and the new and upcoming grant opportunities we're looking at for stewardship projects or environmental quality improvement projects with USDA. But that is the orientation of the department. In a nutshell, what we do. Anybody at any time can come down to the office. We're just down the hall. It's open door policy for us. We can walk you through the day-to-day operations and the chaos that goes on at the lands office on a daily basis. But it's always an open door policy for anybody to come down. And if there's any questions for myself or my staff, we'd be willing to answer.
Any questions for Mark or any of the staff? Tom?
Hey, Mr. Chair, when does the new land status maps become available? How often do they do those?
Marty's working on the 26th one right now.
Okay.
He getting some verification from Marla and George on some of the recent purchases, but he was just verifying some other of the geocodes out there that he was working with, but we are looking at that as we speak.
Barring any other questions, thank you, Mark, and thank you all for the work you do. And Happy New Year and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council.
Anything else for the good of the organization today?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Len.
Yeah, if I can have this discussion in executive.
What discussion are you talking about?
I had a request from a tribal member.
And you're looking to discuss it today or?
Yes.
And you want executive?
Yes, please.
Okay, out of regular into executive. Shehoy.